The story kicks off back in the good old days when humans had electricity. In Chicago, a young Charlie is watching Looney Tunes. Little Danny is playing with an iPad, and their mother Rachel chats on the phone. Suddenly, the father Ben bursts inside, and with a worried look, he informs them that they don't have much time left. Rachel seems to know what he's talking about. Elsewhere, two guys are seen going somewhere via the main highway. One of them is Ben's brother, Miles, and the other one is his friend. Miles receives a call from Ben, who frantically tells him it's all gonna turn off and it will never ever turn back on. Confused, Miles asks his brother to explain calmly, but just then, his phone gets switched off. At the same time, his friend's smartphone also blanks out automatically. On the other hand, as lights begin to flicker, Ben checks his laptop, which says downloading files. Just in time, it hits 100%, after which he pulls a USB plug from the laptop and slips it into a metallic triangular locket-like thing. On the highway, Miles and his friend step off of their stalled car to witness a stream of headlights flickering off, one car at a time. Planes start crashing here and there, transformers explode and catch fire, and even the iconic Willis Tower goes pitch black. We are then shown an aerial view of the globe, which shows that lights are going out everywhere. It starts in the northeast corner of the US and spreads west and southward. The world is falling into chaos. Guess it's time to bust out the old playing cards and books by candlelight, a fate which Gen Z views as worse than death. Then we hear a narration which informs us that 15 years have passed since that fateful day. After the blackout, nothing worked. All electronic items were rendered useless, and not only that, car engines, jet turbines, and even small batteries became defunct. This created a chain of events that caused mass casualties, sickness without medicine, fires without fire trucks, food without factories. Soon governments fell, and militias started rising. After the blackout, the United States was divided into 6 parts: the Monroe Republic, the Georgia Federation, the Plains Nation, Texas, the California Commonwealth, and the Wasteland. Due to the terrorizing state of the cities, most people have left for other safer places. Ben and his family are among those, as they have relocated to the countryside. It is a peaceful colony in the Monroe Republic, where a few hundred people have settled. It is revealed that Ben's wife Rachel passed away a few years ago, and now he is dating a British medical doctor named Maggie. The children, Danny and Charlie, are also grown up now, but Danny is vulnerable to being alone as he has severe asthma. One day, as Charlie is out in the forest with her brother, she finds an abandoned RV. Curious, she gets inside and finds a mini fridge that reminds her of something. Minutes after the blackout, her parents let her eat all the ice cream that was melting, because that would be the last ice cream she ever had. A few days later, as Charlie is out on one of her usual expeditions in the forest, the main military force of the Monroe Republic, the Monroe Militia, barges into the colony. The militia have the Monroe Republic symbol branded on their wrist to identify them as simps for Maryland. As members. As this settlement is located in the Monroe Republic, the residents have an obligation to give up their crops as a form of tax. However, Ben knows that this is more than just a tax issue. Realizing that something bad is about to happen, he approaches his good friend Aaron and hands him the locket, which contains the USB that we saw earlier. He tells him to keep the locket safe, no matter what. Then, the captain of the militia group, Major Tom Neville, asks for Ben to come with them. He also inquires about his brother Miles, but Ben replies that they haven't met in 15 years. As everyone watches in fear, the militia prepares to leave, but just then, Danny points a crossbow at them, threatening them to let his father go. Ben tries to calm the situation down, but to no avail. Unfortunately, he is the first one to be shot, and because of this, Danny takes down an enemy. Soon, the villagers also start attacking the militia, but they are of no match. After several people are killed, Tom and his army finally leave, but not before taking Danny with them as a hostage. A while later, Charlie finally arrives and finds her father lying in a pool of blood. With his last breaths, he informs her that Danny has been kidnapped by the militia, and now, their only hope to retrieve him is Miles, who is living in Chicago. Charlie pleads with him to hang on, but Ben tells her to find Uncle Miles before passing away. Expectedly, Charlie is devastated by the incident, but she has no time to grieve. She packs her belongings and gets ready to head out alone, but a concerned Maggie and Aaron also decide to join her, much to Charlie's dismay. The trio travels the entire day through dangerous terrain and forms a close bond with each other. The next morning, when Charlie heads to a nearby waterfall to fetch some water, she comes across a dangerous-looking man named Nate. Since the world is plunged into total anarchy after the blackout, every new individual is deemed to be a threat, even more so for a girl like Charlie. Know what I'm saying? But luckily for her, Nate simply asks her name and then lets her go. That evening, Charlie and her group find an abandoned plane and decide to sleep inside. But unfortunately, Unfortunately, it turns out to be the hideout of a group of scavengers. The thugs hold the three at knife point, and one of them takes Charlie away. Realizing the danger, Maggie cleverly makes the other thugs drink some whiskey, which she had poisoned earlier, and as soon as they do, they choke to death. On the other hand, the final thug tries to have his way with Charlie, but just then, Nate arrives in the nick of time and saves her. The next morning, he accompanies the group, as it turns out that he is also heading to Chicago. Maggie is skeptical about the new member in the squad, and warns Charlie that they shouldn't trust anyone, but the latter reminds her that not everyone is bad. Elsewhere, as Major Tom and his army are resting, Danny manages to free himself from his shackles and flees. He runs the whole night and gets far away from the militia, but eventually collapses near a house due to an asthma attack. A few hours later, he wakes up inside the house and finds a lady pointing her rifle at him. She introduces herself as Grace and inquires how he ended up here. Danny responds that he was kidnapped, and hearing this, the woman finally lowers her guard. She also hands him an inhaler, mentioning that it belonged to her late son. Elsewhere, the group finally reaches the city of Chicago, which is also located in Monroe Republic. It's a sight to behold. Wrigley Field is covered in ivy plants. Streets are filled with fish vendors, and the Volkswagen Beetle cars turned into horse buggies. Following the information given by Ben, they reach a hotel and ask the bartender about a certain Miles Matheson. At first, the bartender denies knowing anyone by that name, but when Charlie mentions that her father has recently died, he speaks up. He reveals that he himself is Miles, but he has been keeping his identity a secret due to security reasons. He's literally the first person they talked to, so he's not doing a great job of hiding. Shortly after, Miles takes his niece inside and talks to her privately. Charlie tells him everything about how the militia killed her father and kidnapped Danny. She then inquires about why they are after her family, to which Miles responds that Ben knew something about the blackout. The leader of the Monroe Republic, General Monroe, is a cruel dictator who wants to take control over the entire country and eventually the world. But for that, he needed weapons like tanks, fighter planes, and even nuclear bombs. And since Ben was the only guy who knew about the blackout's cause, Monroe believed that he could reverse it. Hearing all this, Charlie becomes even more concerned about her brother and asks her uncle to help her, but surprisingly, he refuses. He claims that the mission is too risky and it's not worth fighting for. Distraught, Charlie heads back to her group and prepares to leave. Seeing her upset, an overprotective Nate confronts Miles and almost gets into a fight, but instead gets his identity exposed from his wrist. It turns out that Nate is also a member of the Monroe militia, and he was following Charlie and the group just so he could get to Miles. Everyone is stunned by the revelation, but before they can take action, Nate runs away. Despite his location being compromised, Miles still refuses to leave his hideout. He asserts that he will face the militia alone if he has to. Charlie and the group offer to help him, but Miles shouts at them, forcing them to leave. In no time, a large army of militia, including Nate, arrives and starts fighting with Miles. But despite being outnumbered, he uses his incredible sword skills and agility to kill the enemies one by one. Soon, Charlie and the gang also return and join the fight, making it slightly more even. Amidst the chaos, a member of the militia tries to kill Charlie, but surprisingly, Nate knocks him out before running away. After a while, Miles kills the captain of the militia group and eventually ends the fight. He then agrees to join Charlie and the others to find Danny, making everyone excited. Following this, Miles has a flashback about the night of the blackout. After the whole world goes dark, he gets out of his car along with his friend. They then return to their Marine Corps base, revealing that the two of them are Marines. There, a flash of the friend's tattoo, an M in the same style as the militia's symbol, reveals that Miles's friend is none other than Sebastian Monroe, the current leader of the Monroe Republic. Elsewhere, Major Tom and his men follow Danny's footprints and arrive outside Grace's house. Initially, the kind woman tries to save the boy, but when Major Tom threatens to kill her, she steps aside. With this, the militia barges inside the house and recaptures Danny. After they are gone, Grace covertly goes to the basement and takes out her pendant, which is similar to the one that Aaron is carrying. When she presses it, surprisingly, a light bulb inside the room starts glowing. Grace then plugs the pendant into her makeshift computer and starts chatting with someone. The guy on the other side is relieved that the militia didn't catch her secret. Elsewhere, Miles leads the group to a tavern. He is looking for a former associate named Nora, who supposedly is a master in creating explosives. Miles tells Charlie that if they are to rescue Danny, they will need a skilled fighter like Nora. At the tavern, he is suddenly attacked by a few bounty hunters, but once again, he comes out on top. He then chokes one of the men and forces him to reveal Nora's location. It turns out that she has been apprehended by the militia and is currently working as a slave. At night, Miles decides to go on the journey alone, claiming that it is too dangerous. He then tells the rest of the group to meet in exactly 2 weeks in Lowell, Indiana. However, the next morning, when Maggie and Aaron wake up, they find out that the stubborn Charlie has also left, much to their annoyance. Left with no other options, Aaron finally shows Maggie the pendant that Ben gave him. He also reveals that Ben instructed him to meet a woman called Grace in Grant Park, Illinois. Although the two are still worried about Charlie, they assume that she will be fine and instead head to Grant Park to find Grace. Along the way, the two talk about how Grace could be the key in restoring energy back to the Earth, and they get excited. On the other hand, as Major Tom is leading his army back to their base, a gunshot is heard. Hence, he changes course and follows the sound until he reaches a small house. It turns out that in this Monroe Republic, civilians can't own guns and ammunition. This is the reason why everybody uses crossbows and other short-range weapons. To make a statement, Major Tom threatens the owner of the house to give up all of his weapons. Realizing that he will be killed anyway, the man shoots one of Tom's men before getting shot himself. As all of this transpires, a terrified Danny looks on. At the militia's base, we are formally introduced to General Monroe. He is the main evil behind all this cruelty and is longing for world domination. Monroe interrogates a civilian about the shortage of weapons, but when the scared man doesn't answer, he brutally finishes him off. Later, he enters a room and approaches one of his workers. She is revealed to be Ben's wife, Rachel, who is assumed by everyone to be dead. Monroe breaks the news that Ben has passed away, and hearing this, Rachel gets visibly upset. Meanwhile, Charlie travels the whole day in the forest and eventually finds her uncle. As expected, Miles is angry at her for disobeying his orders, but when Charlie mentions that her brother is prone to asthma attacks, he calms down. Soon, the two come across a large number of slaves, who are apparently transporting a helicopter. It turns out that General Monroe is so sure that the energy will return someday that he has already started preparing himself for world domination. Among the slaves is also Nora, but saving her will be difficult as there are several guards, one of whom is carrying a sniper rifle. Despite the risks, Miles is adamant on saving his friend. He waits until the night and sets his plan in motion. At first, he creates a distraction and lures away the guards. Then, he sneaks near the slaves and eventually frees Nora. But, to his dismay, he learns that Nora had voluntarily become a slave, as she wanted to steal the sniper rifle. Snipers are an extremely rare weapon in this world. After a bit of catching up, Miles tells Nora that he needs her help in rescuing his nephew. She immediately agrees, but in return, asks his help to retrieve the sniper rifle. Miles is reluctant, but he has no choice but to agree. After a while, the three head to a nearby hut and start planning. Using gunpowder, Nora makes a makeshift weapon which will be used to kill the guard with the sniper. However, the problem is that the weapon will be effective only from a few meters. This means that someone will have to approach the guard and shoot him. Miles and Nora will easily be detected, and that leaves Charlie as the only viable option. Before leaving, Miles assures her that they will take out the rest of the guards as soon as she makes the kill. Shortly after, Charlie hides the weapon inside her sleeves, pretends to be a lost traveler, and approaches the guards. She then gets near the guard with the sniper and takes him out immediately. And before the other guards can do anything, Miles and Nora ambush them and finish them off. After the altercation, as the slaves are being freed, Nora reveals that she stole the sniper for the rebels, a bunch of patriotic folks who want to liberate the country from the militia. At Grant Park, as Grace is typing on her computer, someone barges inside her house and confronts her. He also has a locket like hers, which is releasing energy into his taser stick. On the other hand, Miles tries his best to convince Nora to leave the rebel gang, but she refuses. Here, it is revealed that the two were a couple once, but had to break up after the blackout. I guess not being able to scroll their socials during dates made them realize they didn't like each other. Shortly after, they arrive at a rebel base, which is ironically led by a holy pastor. The pastor is happy that Nora brought the sniper, but shares the bad news that their army has just been ambushed. When the group gets inside the base, they find several men, either dead or severely injured. The pastor also reveals that one of the men is missing, and hearing this, Miles tells everyone to leave the place immediately. He believes that the militia is interrogating their man, and it is only a matter of time before their location is compromised. Nora agrees, but asks for 30 minutes, as they have to patch up the wounded men. Unfortunately, their decision turns out to be fatal, as after just a few minutes, the militia, led by Captain Adam, shows up. To buy them some time, Miles orders their best shooter to head upstairs with the sniper. The plan works, as the guy starts taking down several of the militia's men, forcing them to retreat. The standoff lasts so long that it has now become night. Inside the base, Miles and the group are trying to make a tunnel through the wall so that they can get to the other side. However, their plan fails miserably when the wall becomes loose and falls falls into the hole they just dug, hence destroying their hard work. At the same time, the sniper on the roof also gets killed. Soon, Captain Adam and his men barge into the base, but Miles, busting out those badass sword chops again, brings down some of the men and takes Adam hostage. He then ties him up in a room and starts thinking of a way out. Surprisingly, Adam recognizes Miles, leaving everyone in the room shocked. Charlie asks how they could know each other, and in a shocking turn of events, Adam reveals that Miles was the former right-hand man of General Monroe. In fact, he is the one who trained the entire militia, and that is why they are so deadly. But despite the revelation, Miles is focused on getting them out. He proposes a deal in which he will surrender himself to the Monroe militia, and in exchange, his group will be left unharmed. For some reason, Adam accepts, probably because he's lying, and soon, Miles is taken away. A flashback then shows that 2 weeks after the blackout, Miles left for Chicago in search of his brother, and his best friend Monroe also followed him. Along the way, they came across two men severely beating up a man. Being the nice guy that he is, Miles approaches them, takes out his gun, and shoots them dead. After this, the two friends help the victim up, who is revealed to be none other than Captain Adam. This is why he respects Miles, despite their current indifferences. Back in the present, as the militia is escorting Miles to their base, they come across a bridge. Suddenly, an explosion occurs, and while everyone is startled, Nora and Charlie arrive and rescue Miles. Before leaving, they set off another explosion to ensure that they will not be pursued. Elsewhere, Maggie and Aaron, who are on a mission to find Grace, finally reach her house, but find it abandoned. Aaron, who is revealed to be a former Google employee, knows a great deal about computers. So when he heads to the basement, he notices Grace's computer and immediately finds out that it was recently built, indicating that the place had electricity. However, when he analyzes the machine for hours, he gets no clues. Tired, Aaron goes upstairs and shares his disappointment with Maggie. Just then, his pendant starts glowing, and some nearby headphones start blasting a song. The episode ends as Maggie's iPhone also comes to life, because of which she sees her children after years. In the opening scene, we are introduced to a woman named Nita Hook, who lives alone in a small apartment in the north of England. She works as a sales assistant at a store called Posset, specifically in the footwear section. She spends her day opening up the store, helping out customers, and doing everything she can to be the best employee in her boss's view. However, she is often bullied by her fellow coworker Vicky, who often makes her cut her lunch breaks short and deal with difficult, arrogant customers. One day, she is even asked to deal with a suspicious man named Keith Holligan, who is rumored to have killed his wife. He also looks like a big old pedo. In the midst of all this, the town is politically charged, and a conservative government is on the rise. Most of the population hates the immigrants and wants them out of the country. It is then shown that the year is 1979, and a local leader named Michael Smart is trying to gain power. Nita also faces racism and alienation due to her Indian background. The people in the street give her suspicious, side-eyed glances, while Vicky hates the fact that she eats Indian food. The combination of these negative experiences makes Nita harbor violent fantasies when she meets arrogant customers, but she never acts on them. One day at work, the manager, who seems to have been tipped by Vicky, asks Nita to eat her Indian lunch in the basement in order to avoid any potential smell. Nita innocently complies and heads to the basement during her lunch break. There, she stumbles upon a collection of old newspaper clippings detailing various tragic events. Among these clippings, she discovers a peculiar stone with an engraved symbol. When she proceeds to pick up the stone, she accidentally cuts her finger, smearing blood on it. Regardless, she secretly stuffs the stone in her pocket before leaving the basement. Later, back at her home, Nita takes the stone in her hand. To her astonishment, she hears a voice coming from the stone. The voice introduces itself as a demon named Gap and reveals that the stone she is holding is a powerful talisman. The demon tells her that by inadvertently marking the talisman with her blood, Nita has become bound to a chilling obligation to carry out 3 human sacrifices, or else the world will meet its end. As expected, Nita doesn't believe all of this, but the next second, the demon takes on a terrifying physical form, scaring the life out of her. When she continues screaming, Gap transforms into Nita's favorite singer from the band Boney M. Nita is unable to believe her own eyes, but Gap goes on to say that they must execute 1 person per day in order to prevent the impending apocalypse. Overwhelmed and uncertain, Nita initially considers the entire situation to be a mere hallucination and tries to ignore the entity's demands. However, Gap removes her doubts by revealing a glimpse of a world in ruins with a simple snap of his fingers. Driven by panic, Nita storms out into the dark night and comes across a 39-year-old man named Tim Simons, who is walking his dog under a bridge. Gap, who follows her everywhere, urges her to make her first sacrifice. When Nita hesitates, the demon claims that Tim is a bad person who preys on his own 12-year-old daughter. He even shows her a vision of that disgusting scenario. This is enough to persuade Nita, and filled with rage, she uses a brick to strike Tim on the head, killing him instantly. However, right after she commits the deed, she returns home and throws up. She is unable to sleep the whole night as the memory of what she has done weighs heavily on her mind. At one point, she even contemplates surrendering herself to the police, but Gap stops her, warning her that failing to complete the remaining 2 sacrifices will result in the apocalypse. The demon advises her to pretend as if everything is normal, so that she can avoid arousing suspicion from anyone. The next day, the police find Tim's lifeless body beneath the bridge and start an investigation. Meanwhile, Nita goes about her usual routine at work, pretending as if nothing has happened. Gap continues to follow her, persistently encouraging her to select her next victim. However, Nita ignores him and heads straight back home after work. When she spends the entire day without killing anyone, Gap warns her that failure to do so will trigger an apocalypse, and even shows her news of a potential nuclear war between Russia and the US as evidence. This makes Nita realize that he is speaking the truth, so she selects a weapon of choice, which turns out to be a hammer. She then heads to the local bar for a drink, hoping it will give her some courage. At the bar, the 2 spot Keith, and Gap confirms that the man indeed killed his wife. This means that Keith is perfect for their next target. He also still looks like a big old pedo. Meanwhile, the bartender and a barmaid notices something amiss about Nita, as she appears to be talking to herself, unaware that she's communicating with Gap. A short while later, Nita follows Keith out of the bar and approaches him, who then invites her to his place. As soon as they arrive, Nita takes out the hammer from her bag and gets ready to kill him. But just then, a scared Keith confesses that he is a bad person and that he feels guilty about everything he did. Despite this revelation, Nita, with only 6 minutes until midnight, strikes Keith in the head repeatedly until he dies. Later, as she is about to leave the house, Keith's brother Chris enters and notices Nita with her blood-stained jacket. In an attempt to erase all evidence, Nita ends up getting in a scuffle with Chris and stabs him fatally with a kitchen knife. Upon returning home, Nita is racked with guilt, because this time, she killed an innocent person. Nonetheless, Gap insists she must move on from the incident as her assignment of killing 3 people is now fulfilled. But, surprisingly, the talisman's symbol still indicates that the apocalypse has not been averted. Perplexed, Gap contacts his higher authorities to inquire, only to learn that Keith's death does not count towards the ritual's completion because they can't kill murderers as part of the ritual. It means that Nita must still take 1 more life to fulfill her task. This infuriates Nita, and she puts the blame on Gap, also claiming that she won't carry out any more murders. However, the demon admits that he wasn't aware of all this. Furthermore, he reveals that not completing the task would make him fail his initiation, and he'd be banished to oblivion forever. Hearing this, Nita empathizes with Gap's situation, feeling a connection as an immigrant who struggles to find a sense of belonging, particularly after her mother's passing. Hence, she reluctantly agrees to undertake her final task, and together, they seek to determine their last victim. While at work the next day, Nita and Gap plan to target Vicky, who consistently mistreats her. Just then, Tim's grieving wife and daughter walk into the store to buy a pair of funeral shoes. While serving them, Nita feels very bad for the little girl, but Gap consoles her, saying that her actions have saved Tim's daughter from a future of misery. Later on, as Gap is pushing Nita to choose between killing Vicky and her boss, the local political leader, Michael Smart, enters. Following this, the boss calls out to Vicky as the best employee and asks her to serve Michael. As the two talk, Nita learns that Michael is a racist individual who absolutely hates immigrants. He promises to remove all of them from the country once he comes into power. Enraged, Nita changes her target to Michael and asks Gap to show her his future. As he does, Nita learns that Michael will be creating a complete destruction of the world by declaring war in the future. Gap pleads with her to select a different target, claiming that his superiors won't be happy with the sacrifice of Michael, but Nita has already made up her mind. She then leaves the store, taking a red leather jacket she'd been eyeing for a long time. time. Now she kinda looks like a pedo herself. On the other hand, a team of police officers led by Len Fisher is investigating the initial murder. As they struggle to solve the first case, they come across the deceased bodies of Keith and Chris. Upon investigating further, they learn that Keith was at a local bar the previous night, prompting them to head towards the site. The bartender tells them that he saw an Indian girl acting weirdly, referring to Nita. In addition, the barmaid also discloses that Nita drank 2 glasses of alcohol alone, and on top of that, she was muttering to herself. Later in the evening, Len visits Nita's residence to conduct a formal inquiry. He questions her about Keith and whether she saw him at the bar the night before. Cleverly, Nita pretends that she does not know Keith and has never heard of that name before. With this response, she manages to dismiss the police officer. After Len leaves the house, she goes back to Gap and continues planning Michael's murder. A few hours before midnight, Nita and Gap drive to the town hall where Michael is giving a speech and wait for him outside. Unbeknownst to them, Len, who is still suspicious of Nita, follows her to the town hall. As Michael walks out of the hall and starts driving away, Nita pursues him. While pursuing Michael's car, she notices Len through her mirror, but she manages to shake him off her tail when they pass through a closed railway crossing. After a little bit of a car chase, Nita hits Michael's car, causing him to lose control and skidding him off the road before hitting a tree. Although injured, Michael survives the accident. Seeing this, Nita retrieves her hammer from her car and walks towards Michael with the intention of killing him. However, before she can do so, Len arrives at the scene and intervenes, preventing her from carrying out the gruesome acts. After this, Nita is handcuffed and taken into custody. At the police station, Nita confesses everything, including the existence of the demon Gap and the dire consequences she was told would occur if she didn't fulfill the killings. She explains how she believed that not carrying out the murders would trigger a nuclear war, causing global devastation. However, this only makes her look like she's mentally unstable. As the minutes count down and the clock strikes midnight, an eerie silence envelops the surroundings for a brief moment. Suddenly, the air raid sirens outside begin to blare, prompting all the officers to rush out to investigate. To their utter shock, they discover that Nita's grim prediction has come true. The world is under nuclear attack. Meanwhile, Gap appears before Nita once again. Now that they are unable to complete the sacrifice, the demon will be banished into eternal oblivion. As a result, Gap offers her to accompany him in eternal oblivion, which Nita agrees to after a while of deliberating. In the final scene, Gap and Nita exchange glances as they walk away together while the world burns behind.
In Amsterdam City, Aziz endures a boring office job with a manager that treats him horribly, makes him work extra hours, and pays him barely enough to survive. Unlike Aziz, his brother Mo doesn't work. He spends his time crashing parties and constantly calling Aziz at the office to try to get him to join him. Aziz is a nobody in the office, which is why he's shocked when his crush Tess asks him out on a date, and Aziz accepts, earning him lots of teasing from his co-workers. Unfortunately, it also earns him the attention of the manager, who gets incredibly jealous and fires Aziz, using the fact his brother is always calling him during work hours to distract him as an excuse. With all his belongings in a box, Aziz goes to see his brother at the party, but instead of showing sympathy, Mo gets happy about Aziz getting fired because it means now they can open a business together. Since Mo is a good-for-nothing, Aziz can't trust him with such a thing, and this triggers an argument during which Mo throws a ball that accidentally hits the house owner's girlfriend. As revenge, the guy sends his thugs Nolan and Jeffrey to beat them up. As the rest of the partygoers run away, the 4 men start a fight where not many hits are exchanged before the cops arrest them. In prison, the 4 of them keep arguing until Officer Kim brings prisoner Yoris to the cells too, and all the guys begin hitting on her except for Aziz. To shut them up, Kim tases all of them. Later, when night falls, Tess keeps waiting for Aziz at the office, but obviously he doesn't show up. The manager takes the chance to make a pass at Tess, but she turns him down, leaving him frustrated. At that moment, a terrifying ball of fire appears in the sky and the manager watches in fear as this thing crashes into the building. The guys in jail feel the ground shake and an alarm ring, but they blame it on an earthquake and decide to go to sleep. The next morning, Aziz wakes up first and discovers the cell doors are open. The men don't hesitate to escape, and while Mo starts arguing with Nolan and Jeffrey again, Aziz and Yoris go down the hallway to investigate, only to mysteriously find nobody around. When the group goes upstairs, they recover their phones from the locker and Aziz finds he has 15 messages from Tess, saying she's stuck in the office and that there are monsters everywhere, so she needs help. Aziz then realizes the police station is a mess, and when he goes outside with the others, they find the city turned upside down by zombies. In fact, one old lady zombie immediately comes right after them, only to be stopped by Kim, who doesn't hesitate to shoot the zombie before dragging all the guys back inside the station. Then she turns on the TV to watch newscaster Jan explain what happened. It turns out a Russian space probe crashed in Aziz's office building, and the parts that fell all over the place spread a virus in the form of a green slime that turns people into zombies. The city of Amsterdam is being hermetically sealed off by the army, and any survivors that haven't been infected yet can approach any of 3 secure areas at the city borders. While a worried Aziz tries to call Tess without success, Nolan looks around the rooms and finds a bowling ball where he accidentally gets his finger stuck. Kim wants to stay inside that house until the army arrives for the sake of their own safety, but at that moment, a few zombies manage to get inside and the group has no choice but to fight them, using random office items like a stapler, a keyboard, and a fan. Nolan's bowling ball turns out to be rather useful because it allows him to smash zombies' heads with ease. Once they're free of danger, the group gets in a police car and tries away, but since the car keeps running over zombies, soon it's covered in green slime and it's too dangerous to stay this exposed to it. Thinking fast, Kim makes everyone leave the car, and as she kicks off any zombies that come close, she brings the men into a store. Aziz in particular needs to be dragged because he keeps getting distracted by the sight of his office building with the probe on top. Inside the store, Aziz gets a call from Tess, who is fine but still needs help to escape the building. Aziz promises to rescue her, but when he tells the others, everyone calls him crazy and refuses to go with him, no matter how moving his speech about saving the innocent is. Kim decides they'll try to reach a secure area, but before leaving, the group grabs as much useful equipment as they can from the store, including a second bowling ball for Nolan. Mo also considers grabbing the money from the cash register, but Joris points out that it's not much and that they can stop at the bank he works for later. Afterward, the group makes it to a gas station, where they start looking into what car they can take. Aziz still wants to leave alone to save Tess, prompting Kim to slap him multiple times to try to make him see reason. Jeffrey and Mo get in a limousine and find famous singer Ben Saunders in the back, only to accidentally kill him when a group of zombies arrives and the noises of the fight outside scare Mo into involuntarily shooting his crossbow. Since none of them knows how to jumpstart a car, they'll have to think of some other plan to keep going. They go back to the streets, defending themselves the best they can by using the stuff they took from the store, but it's not very effective. Thankfully, Jeffrey realizes they're near a garage owned by his friend Ruben, who works there with 2 other mechanics, and they're allowed inside with no trouble. Now that they're safe again, Kim takes a moment to apologize to Aziz for having hit him. Ruben and his friend show the group that they've discovered that green slime makes for a very powerful energy source that can make a vehicle run. However, things go sour when Jeffrey notices the 3rd mechanic is missing. It turns out he's become a zombie and he's been chained to a wall. The group wants to kill the monster, but Ruben won't let them and puts himself between the zombie and Jeffrey's party. This is an awful idea, because the zombie doesn't remember his friends and bites Ruben before breaking the chains to attack the others. While the group fights the zombie, Aziz picks another call from Tess, who is being surrounded by zombies and doesn't know for how long she'll be able to survive. Right before Nolan manages to finish the zombie off with his bowling balls, the monster manages to wound Kim, and Aziz cradles her in his arms because he refuses to leave her behind. Unfortunately, Nolan, Jeffrey, Mo, and Joris don't care, and they leave in the slime-powered truck to find Joris' bank. As soon as they make it to the bank, Joris opens the safe and the group begins filling lots of bags with as much cash as they can. Nolan wanders off and discovers the work had been having a birthday party when the zombies came, and the birthday cake looks too delicious not to try it. There's a dead man's head on top of it, so Nolan tries to be as sneaky as possible, but the man wakes up as anyway and bites Nolan's arm. When everyone is ready to go, Joris shows his true colors and threatens the others with his weapon to make them hand him all the money, then he escapes right before the building gets surrounded by more zombies. Jeffrey and Mo discover Nolan has been bitten and Mo points out that the arm should go, but his idea is quickly turned down. Meanwhile, Aziz is carrying Kim on a cart from the garage and making his way to his office building. When Kim wakes up, she notices zombies keep coming after them, so she keeps them at bay with a mace. As she starts feeling better, she ditches the cart and walks next to Aziz, explaining how impressed she is by the fact he wants to save his girlfriend so badly because her ex would have never done that for her. However, when Aziz confesses he hasn't gone on his first date with Tess yet, Kim gets furious and hits him again before refusing to help anymore. At that moment, Aziz gets a call from Mo, requesting help too because they're stuck inside the bank. Tess calls as well, and now Aziz has to choose between the girl he likes and his own brother. At the bank, Nolan is starting to vomit green slime, meaning Jeffrey and Mo have no choice but to kill him off. This turns out to be harder than it looks and they have to use a variety of objects to get the job done, including a lamp, a bowling ball, and even a sink. On TV, Jan continues to update the viewers on the situation, killing any zombies that try to interrupt his program. It's been discovered the space probe attracts the zombies to the office building like a magnet, and Russia is sending a special commando to take care of it. Aziz and Kim arrive at the bank and distract the zombies by activating a car alarm, allowing them to enter the bank and rescue Jeffrey and Mo. The group runs away as fast as they can only to get stuck in a playground when the zombies surround them again, but when they're about to lose hope, they are surprised by the arrival of the Barachi brothers. These guys used to own a kebab restaurant and became expert monster hunters when one day all their clients transformed into zombies. Following a video game-like sequence, the Barachis beat up most of the enemies, and leave the last group to be killed by their very own trained zombie, who they release as a reward for a job well done. Before leaving, the brothers give the group directions to reach the closest secure area. Moments later, they finally arrive at the shelter, but Aziz doesn't want to go in and asks the soldiers to come with him to rescue Tess. Every soldier ignores the request and asks him to either enter or go away, going as far as turning their weapons on Aziz. Refusing to give up, Aziz steals an army truck and is surprised to see Mo, Kim, and Jeffrey coming with him. When they make it to the office building, they arm themselves with military weapons from the back of the truck. While Jeffrey stays outside with a minigun to keep the zombies back and get revenge for Nolan, Aziz, Mo, and Kim take the elevator to reach the higher floors and find Tess. Sadly, the elevator gets stuck when they're about to make it, so the trio has to force open the door and look for Tess while avoiding any zombies already in the building. At that moment, Jeffrey runs out of ammunition and rushes inside, only to find the elevator isn't working. Now he'll have to climb the stairs, which is a long trip to make from the first floor, not to mention the added weight of the minigun. As the trio carefully sneaks around the offices, they come across a co-worker of Aziz's who is here for Tess too because she's called every single guy she's had a night of fun with. Mo gets furious at the fact they've been putting themselves in danger, but Kim tells Aziz to go ahead and find Tess anyway while she and Mo use their firearms to fight the incoming zombie horde. Once he's far enough from the fight, Aziz calls Tess, only to hear her say she doesn't need saving anymore because another co-worker arrived first. While Tess and the guy get busy on a desk, the manager arrives as a zombie and attacks them both. Moments later, Aziz finally makes it to the roof, followed shortly by Mo, who got separated from Kim during the struggle. Zombies are also reaching the roof and coming after them, so the brothers shoot at them while having an argument because Mo blames Aziz for getting them stuck there. Furious, Aziz calls Mo a loser that breaks everything he builds, but as soon as he realizes how much he's hurt his brother, he apologizes and they make up with a hug. Suddenly, a helicopter drops a man on the roof. It's Russian commando Andrij, who comes across as brave and dependable only to get bitten by a zombie as soon as he lands. Before the infection takes his sanity, he urges the brothers to help him put the explosives he's brought all over the probe, that way they can blow up the building and all the zombies with it. Meanwhile, Kim comes across Tess, who apparently is scared and crying. However, this is all an act to bring Kim closer since she's a zombie too. While the women start to fight and Jeffrey continues to make his way upstairs very slowly, Aziz and Mo finish putting up the explosives right before Andrij turns into a zombie. The brothers fight him together to no avail, and Andrij manages to push Mo to the ground to bite him. Aziz finds a grenade the soldier dropped and hangs it on a pencil that he proceeds to stick on Andrij's head, effectively killing him when it explodes. Since Mo has been bitten, he decides to stay behind with the detonator and sends Aziz away, giving him 10 minutes before blowing up the building and telling him to go for Kim instead of Tess because she's a much better person. As he makes his way back into the building, Aziz comes across the manager, who he shoots quickly before turning around the corner and finding Kim killing Tess with a kick to the head. Afterward, Kim and Aziz begin running down the stairs, where they almost make Jeffrey cry when he hears they have to go down again after he climbed all his way up. On the roof, Mo finds himself surrounded by zombies and his gun isn't enough to stop them all. He can't die without finishing his mission, so he detonates the explosives before the 10 minutes pass. The building starts to shake as it is hit by the explosion and the trio has to hurry downstairs while dodging zombies at the same time. Fortunately, they leave the building right before it goes down, finding the Barachi brothers waiting for them in their car to offer a safe escape. Night has fallen by the time the group makes it to the secure area. Kim and Aziz want to celebrate with a kiss, but Jeffrey interrupts them and urges them to enter the secure area not to push their luck. Shockingly, things are not much better inside because the entire army has been attacked by vampires. After Aziz expresses his hate for such creatures, the group gets ready to fight while on TV, Jan sadly loses the battle and is killed in front of the camera.